series, Trading Saints for Sinners was recently published by Rags Inc. in December of 2003. Please welcome Roman Colombo.
Hello. So I'm going to read just a little bit from here. And so we are looking for great writers to submit to that. We're looking for writers who like to come to these readings. So we're purposely announcing it at readings. So if you like superheroes, if you like supervillains and want to tell a story, talk to me afterward and I'll give you a way to contact us for submission as well. I'm just going to read a little bit of the opening to Trading Saints for Sinners. Then this takes place in Frankfurt, Germany in 2007. And starts off with a quote from Oscar Wilde, "We are each our own devil and we make this world our hell." So this is from part one, A Labyrinth of Sinners. The mattress was stiff, the sheets dry and itchy, had only a cold feeling left from when it was damp. On a nightstand next to a ball of thread, 55 of his euro lay crumpled as a testimony to 20 minutes of sweat, fluids, and purchased love. Caden Conrad let out a heavy sigh. A heavy post-coitus sigh. He wished he could change the color of the room. Even with the curtains pulled shut and the blinds lowered, the red glow of the street still produced a soft merlot hue in the small space, reflecting off the beads of sweat dripping down this caramel skin of Ariane's naked back. A low-watt bulb over them gave a little light, but not enough to offset the burgundy aura of the room, nor form a proper reflection in the mirror Ariane sat in front of, brushing her hair. "When does your next article come out?" He placed her voice as generally Middle Eastern, though she claimed to be from Sri Lanka. Caden stopped trying to figure out where Ariane was from. He had listened to her talk to herself, recognizing a few Persian words, but also Romani and a little Italian, and even languages he had never heard of before. Her light brown skin, sure, that can pass for an Afghan or Iraqi girl, but the ringlets in her brown hair reminded him of the girls he met in Sicily, and her nose had a slight crook that she could use to claim Italian heritage. Her eyes were the most misleading. One was chocolate brown, the other a sharp blue. Occasionally, Caden wondered how this was possible. Ariane turned toward the bed and stared at her client. "Caden, what's your next Baghdad article about?" Caden had his eyes on a white ceiling divided by a line of red, a sliver of light from outside creeping through the gap between the window and the top of the curtain. He was accustomed to her beauty, but by no means saw her any less remarkable. "I have to submit it tonight. I have a really good photo from over at Ramstein. That's the American base, right?" "No, you're thinking of Landstuhl. Ramstein is the air base." "Why do you have so many bases here?" Caden shrugged. "Well, we can't technically call ourselves an empire, can we?" "Anyway, you were saying about the articles?" "Right, the photo. I paid off an airman, spread some fake blood on his shoulder. He even had a daughter with him, so he carried her like he was saving a little Iraqi girl wrapped up in a blanket. A little Photoshop of a building blowing up down the street from him. It's the best hero shot I've ever taken. Still not sure which soldier is going to die. I might actually make it this character, make it a bit more tragic for the reader." Ariane let out a shiver. "What?" he asked. "You know it's all fake." "I know, but I think of the millions of readers who think they're reading about real people. Don't you ever feel guilty?" He looked at her as she continued to brush her hair. "With every damn word, Ari. Why don't you stop them? Write something real. This city has enough stories alone. There are areas besides the red light district, you know. You don't have. Why don't you write about Frankfurt?" Caden shrugged and continued to keep his eyes on the ceiling, feeling almost intoxicated by the color. "Because I hate this city. This street reeks of regret and years pissed away." Ariane gave a scowl, her deep eyes morphing into a piercing glare. "I live in the city." Caden scoffed. "Right. Because guys all over the world give their girlfriend 60 euro every time they want to have sex. This entire goddamn city is a whore." "I'm not your girlfriend," Ariane quietly reminded. He sat up, leaned against the cold metal frame of the headboard, and shook his head. I was being sarcastic, Ari, but the fact I even have a pet name for my hooker is pretty pathetic. Ariane turned and threw the brush at him, hitting him hard in the chest. It bounced off and fell beneath the nightstand. Hey! Kaden rubbed the spot, trying to make it sting less. I told you never to call me that, she cried. Kaden picked up the brush and looked at it. Then let his eyes wander to the crumpled euros, the white nightstand with paint chipping away in small flakes, in the ball of thread, the reason he kept coming back here after their first time together. One of his favorite myths as a child was of Theseus in the labyrinth trying to escape the Minotaur. Yet Theseus escapes because of Ariane's love, because of the thread she gives him to guide him out of danger. Then comes this prostitute in real life named Ariane, and she even comes complete with a little ball of thread. His sentimental side beat his cynical nature. This had to be a sign. That was 4 months ago. Part of him really hoped that she would still lead him out of the labyrinth, whatever his labyrinth really was. Kaden, I'm sorry, he replied, standing up, reaching for his boxers, but only holding them by his side before lying back again. I mean, hell, Ari, if you weren't here and I wasn't... we could be. Hour's almost up, Kaden. Ariane's eyes pointed towards the digital timer, planted firmly behind the arrows. Kaden generally made it a habit to ignore the device. Yeah, I know, Ari. It usually is. You working tonight? She nodded in the red U, grabbing a towel and looking back to Kaden, who slumped with his head down. He could see out of the corner of his eyes the tilted, solemn look up to her face that made him feel pitied by her. It made him nauseated. I don't work on Tuesday. We can get dinner again. Kaden shrugged. Sure, that'd be nice. Ariane gave Kaden a light punch, smiling at him. What's wrong, Kaden? Prostitutes usually want to see their clients leave satisfied. How do you speak English so well? Ariane's mouth dropped, slightly parted in surprise. But she just sighed and shrugged. What, we can't be smart? I didn't think so, otherwise why even be a prostitute? But you don't seem necessarily dumb, so why are you here? You're a real gentleman, Kaden. Sorry, just not in a flirtatious mood. Ariane wrinkled her nose a little. I grew up learning English from the men who came to see me. You're what, no more than 20? You'd have to be doing this for 6 years to be that fluent? Were you doing this as a child? Ariane stood and walked to the door, hiding her face, but he could feel her eyes tighten to hold back tears. I'm sorry, Ari, alright? I didn't mean... You know, Kaden, why don't you go to the beach or something? Get out of the city. I can fuck you, I can suck your dick for 5 days straight, and you'll still be as miserable as before you came here. He slipped his boxers on and stood up, noticing that Ariane was crying by the door. It never meant to say anything hurtful, Ari. Ariane grabbed her bra and panties from the ground, the only clothing she was really allowed to wear while working, and looked back to Kaden. Yes, you did, Kaden. You've been paying me 3 times a week for the past few months. The reason why the closest thing you have to a girlfriend is a whore is because you want the control. It's what every guy who sees a prostitute wants. Because we really can't say no, can we? You think I like the taste of piss? I never made you. Kaden cut his own words, feeling a tremor in his veins. He shook his head and tried to calm down. I'd take you with me, Ari. You don't need to make false promises to make me feel better. I've heard them all before. Since I was a little girl, it was always, I'll take you back to America with me. You'll be my secret little plaything. You know, I believed those when I was young, but I lost those, what do you Americans call it, Cinderella dreams, a long time ago. I didn't say I will, I said I would. I can't even go back yet. Can't or won't. Kaden shook his head, reaching for his pants, as the timer neared the 2 minutes. Are you a psychologist or a hooker? Ariane shook her head and smirked. He figured it was only a matter of time before his words no longer fazed her. She was strong. In a normal world, a normal place, a normal situation, they might have made a wonderful couple. I need a shower, Kaden. Will I see you soon? You really need an answer? Kaden replaced the brush by the mirror on the dresser. Ariane sighed in disappointment. Come on, really. Leave Frankfurt. Relax in some sand somewhere. I do like our time together. You weren't always... you are much better than all the other men, and you weren't always a jerk. She gave her smile, showing only a hint of teeth in the corner of her mouth, and coming off more cute and quirky than luscious and sexy. Come on, Kaden. Tell me why you left the States. Ari, I've told you a dozen times before, I can't do that. I just want to help you, Kaden. Caden put his pants on and walked to her. 1 minute remained. He grabbed her around the waist and pulled her close, the towel rubbing against his bare, shapeless torso. He could feel her blood pulsing with panic and excitement, feel her breath quiver with hesitation of his act. He felt the first tremor in his blood and couldn't control this sign. "I love you, Ari." She looked into his eyes. "Caden, you can't say that." A surge went through his chest and shoulders and down his arms until his fingers twitched, making her flinch. He wanted to hold back, wanted to subdue the beast, but it fought back. It fought him. Kanan ripped off her towel, dropped it to the ground, and grabbed one of her breasts. She gasped and looked at him. There was fear in her eyes. He had never seen her afraid. The beast inside of him grew excited and took control completely. "I own you for another 45 seconds. Tell me that you love me." "Kaden, tell me." He hollered at her. "I love you." Kaden let her go. Ariane sank to the floor, her back against the door frame. As she cried, Kaden grabbed his wallet and pulled out a 10-euro bill. He walked back to her, took her right hand, pried her fingers open, put the money in her palm, and closed her fingers around it. He opened the door just as an alarm went off, signifying the end of the hour. "Why are you trying to get me to hate you?" Ariane asked of him, still sitting on the floor. He took a deep breath with his nostrils, shook his head, and walked away. "Kaden," Ariane called out. He turned and waited for a response, instinctively reaching for his wallet. She stood up and stared at him. He stared back. "Come back in." She jerked her head towards the door. "My hour is up." He narrowed his eyes and smiled, ready to turn back. "I won't charge you, I just want to talk." "I'm not telling you my story, Ari." Ariane shook her head. "If you leave now, Kaden, don't ever bother coming back." Kaden turned but hesitated, looking down the hallway of closed doors. Muffled sounds of various music styles and sexual fulfillment suffocated the air. Even here, away from the streets, it was still red. Every door a dark maroon, and an exit sign glowing red while the other lights flickered dimly. Fine. That's her inside.